Hey, what's going on, guys? This is the deck build I've been promising you guys for a little while now. This is going to be my Bujin deck build as of April 2014, and my light is flickering already. Well, shit. Well, anyways, I used this deck recently at my locals, and I topped with it. I think this deck is pretty formidable, and on top of that, it really does synergize with all the cards in the deck. Everything helps itself. There's not one card that's just there because it doesn't help. So here we're going to explain this deck step by step and how this deck works, how it can be countered, and what you can do about that. So first of all, 3 Yamatos. This guy is the heart of your Bujin deck. This is how your Bujin deck works. He sends 1 Bujin to the graveyard, and then you get to get a Bujin, or the other way around, so you pretty much just set up your graveyard through Yamato. You want to keep this guy alive, and on top of that, he's just 1800 beater. So next, 2 Mikazuchi. I have debated on running 1, and I do usually side 1 out if I need to get something in my deck, because 2 is not necessary, but I like running 2 because I get to get out my Beast Warrior requirements for any of my cards. He's easily searched, and on top of that, he's a crane target, which is the honest of the deck, which we'll be getting into in a second or two. But anyways, he's really nice, and he's a 1900 beater, and he's good for seizing, I suppose. And he can be special summoned, which is when your Bujins are destroyed, which is quite nice, but I don't really take him out as much as I do with that effect. Now, 3 Crane, this guy is the honest of your deck. He pretty much, you lay him down like you would an honest, except that your Bujin Beast Warrior, only Beast Warrior, so like your Bujingi cards won't really be able to be affected by this, get double their original attack. So it's not as good as honest, but double usually will be able to take out anything. So quite nice. Always run at 3. I've seen people run it at 2. Don't really see why, because it's one of the points of this deck. You know, it helps you get to your win. 2 Hair. This guy helps you pretty much get or deny Mirror Force, or maybe even being destroyed by battle if that comes down to the Hair. Usually you want to put him in the graveyard, him or Turtle, which I'll be getting to in a second, to the graveyard initially with Yamato, or just Xyz to get him into the graveyard. He works all around, though I don't go out to him as much as I do with Turtle, which, this is Turtle. This guy is the same effect, except that it denies targeting, because targeting and destroying is 2 different things, which you'll have to realize with this deck, but still 2 of each, it works. I use this guy 10 times more than I did Hair at my locals, but Hair I use a lot more on YGO Pro. So then the last 2 Bujingi cards, Bujingi Quillin and Bujingi Centipede. Centipede just gives you access to a 4th MST, because that's what he is. Then Quillin really is a popper. You just send him to the graveyard, pop a face-up card on the field, which is extremely useful, and really only running him at 1 is it works, because you can search him out, put him in the graveyard almost automatically. So, but I have debated running 2. Now here comes the non-Bujin cards. 1 Honest gives you access to 4 Honests, like I said, and Honest is just honest. Just run any light deck essentially. Bear, you run Tenki in this deck, so he's quite nice, coupled with the fact that you can pop anything on the field by sacrificing a Tenki, and he searches your Tenkis. And then last but not least, Zephyros. I have 1 games because of Zephyros. I didn't really use him at my locals 2 top though, but he's a last ditch kind of guy, or an easy Xyz. You pretty much just get him to the graveyard through Yamato usually, or Divine Wrath or something, and then bring him back by returning one of your continuous cards, which you run a ton of, might I add, and then you just bring him out, Xyz, or maybe go for game. Now onto the spells. 3 Tenki. This guy searches out your Yamatos, Mikazuchis, and Bears. Usually you just search out your Yamato all the time, because you want to get all 3 of them into your... Well, you want to get all 3 of them into your hand due to Mind Crush, but you want to get, if you have 1 on the field, you want to get 1 in your hand just in case, that Yamato dies. So, on top of that, gives a nice boost to your Beast Warriors and Bear food, pretty much, literally. 3 Duality just helps you search. You don't do a whole lot of special summoning besides Xyzing, of course, but the turn that you would use Duality if you don't have a Yamato, essentially, and then you play Yamato, you aren't going to special summon that turn because you're going to want to use Yamato's effect at the end phase. So 3 is fantastic and gives the deck draw power and more search power, which the deck, as you can see, has a shit ton of. Now 3 MST, you gotta get rid of that back row because this is not a Royal Decree build. Really does help, just pretty much set, pop, you know. Definitely useful. I used it a lot against Dark World and Geargia, which are arguably the 2 hardest matchups that this deck has against them. Now here is one of the best parts of this deck. I was not running this initially in my deck because I did this deck initially as a Vanity's Emptiness build, but I traded for Kaiser right before the tournament, and lo and behold, this card really does make this deck 10 times better. Because essentially what it is that their opponent can only have the amount of monsters that you have on the field, and it doesn't get destroyed automatically like Vanity's Emptiness, which is the most prevalent problem about that damn card. This card just locks down for days. You know, the hardest matchup, which is by far Geargia, got so screwed up when I played Kaiser. When I played, against dark decks, this definitely helped against them, like Dark Worlds, stuff like that, just locked them down. I will run it at 3 if I get to another one, but I do run a card to complement this, which I will show you in a little bit. Then on to 2 Forbidden Lance. This card comes in more useful than not, to be honest, because usually people will side in game 2 or something, like Dark Imprisoning Mirror, place Forbidden Lance, you get to search that turn with your Yamato. Definitely helps and can be a game saver. And then last spell card, Bujin Carnation. This card, once again, is a game saver. I have won games, or I've come back and won games because of that, because it gives you an automatic seize, automatic pretty much comeback. You know, you might, if you go second, you can, this card is ridiculous. I just don't run it 2 because it really does, I don't think that you should run it 2 because it kind of would get cloggy at 2. Because you only really need it mid-late game. 2 Divine Wrath for starting out the trap cards. This card is usually a side deck card, but honestly, this card is fucking amazing in this deck because first of all, it's a +2 because you discard into the graveyard, which is a plus in this deck. And on top of that, you get the +1 of denying any effect, which would be Effect Veil or anything in the graveyard or anything on the field, and destroy it on top of that, which completely is better than Debunk or Effect Valor in that instance, because you would say, oh, run Effect Valor, no, run Divine Wrath in this deck in particular. I can see why you don't want to in some decks, but this deck is so reliant on graveyard that this card just completely wrecks decks, especially like Dark World, anything like that. 2 Fiendish Chains definitely help out getting rid of pesky effect monsters when you don't have your Divine Wraths anymore, and gets rid of really beaters that, are about to attack your Yamato. Maybe you don't have a Crane, flip up Fiendish. It's self-explanatory, essentially. 2 Dimensional Prism. Now, this is not as seen as it should in this format, but in my opinion, this card is definitely one of the best defensive, defense, destroy trap cards in this format by far, because it gets rid of anything that is pesky, and they can't come back 99% of the time, because not a lot of decks run like, let's just say, a Primal Seedish kind of card that will let you get back your remove from play cards. Also gets rid of, the occasional Stardust. Now, this is what I'm talking about before. This is Vanity's Emptiness. Essentially, your opponent cannot special summon monsters or neither player can special summon monsters. The reason why I like Kaiser more is that you can still special summon with Kaiser. You can seize that turn and go back to 1 monster. Your opponent's still locked down, but you can still do the special summon. And on top of that, Vanity's gets destroyed when any of your cards go to the graveyard, which is ridiculous. So that's why I'm only running at 1, but will be putting this into the side deck once I get a 3rd Kaiser. But honestly, the Kaiser / Vanity's lockdown, which I have had, is ridiculous when you can actually pull it off, because your opponent essentially cannot do anything except for summon a level 4 or below. We can't even Tour Guide because of Vanity, so that's probably why I'm going to still run it, maybe when I even go up to 3 Kaiser. Now here are the more staple-ish traps. Solemn and Bottomless just really help. Solemn is solemn, and boundless is boundless. And one Bujin trap, Bujin Regalia. This card again helps with the whole entire, oh no, all my Yamatos are gone, because essentially when that happens, which it can happen, with your deck's almost dead at that point. So you have Regalia and Incarnation to come back from that. Now we're going to go into the other decks. So this deck only runs Xyzs. I do have Veilers in the actual side deck, but that's besides the point. So here are two Susanoo, whatever it's called, I don't care. This guy is amazing. You always want to go into him, essentially. Just search out a card, or you can play a card into the graveyard. It's ridiculous, and it can destroy or attack every single one of your opponent's monsters, which is not something that really happens all too often, but at the same time, it is a plus, and 2400, you can't really, I mean, paired with Tenkies, it really is just awesome, and you can get off with Bujingi monsters, because it's only Bujin monsters, it's on Bujin Beast Warriors, unlike this guy, Bujinte Kagasuchi. I don't really go out to this guy all too much anymore. He's just more or less a beast stick. He does keep alive your Bujin monsters, although, but I don't know. I don't really go out to him as much. And then, last Bujinte, Tsukiyomi. This guy I don't really play, like, at all. But there was one instance that I was like, should I go into Tsukiyomi or should I go into different XCs? I was about to go into Tsukiyomi because I would have been a good play, but honestly, because I didn't have a lot of options, but I ended up going into something else. It's really just a last ditch attempt card. Honor Arc. I finally got myself an Honor Arc at my locals. Shout out to Alex for getting this to me. And this thing came in so handy. It's probably one of the best XC staples, if not the best, besides Exciton, of course. But this card just completely just destroys any chance of any deck. Like, it just, because every deck special summons, essentially. This guy went out to quite a lot, and plus you can keep detaching so he doesn't die. Lavavel Chain, I went out to this guy a lot more than I expected, because I originally bought this guy for my Lightsworn deck, but this guy lets you put Yamatos to the top of your deck, or in, like, once you get that, you can use there's less material to put in, like, a Quillen or something. He's really nice, and I did go out to him a lot of times when I didn't have Yamato. Heartland Draco, this guy's from Premium Gold, and I really do like him. I didn't use him at the locals, but I was about to. I mean, there's some instances that you can do, because you really do run a lot of continuous spells, so you can utilize his effects better. He can direct attack, let's just say against a stall deck, or like a defensive deck, maybe. He's good. He's decent. Star Liege Paladinamo, this guy's amazing. I did go out to him. He just helps with the whole entire, your opponent needs to get down to 0 life points or getting rid of pesky beat stick. Plus you run almost all lights, besides 2 cards, of course. Utopia, just beat stick, and so he's maybe even like go out to him instead of Honor Arc if they aren't special summoning. Tiger King, this guy is quite nice. I don't go out to him as much as I used to, but he just helps get rid of pesky effects that are on the field, and he's easily summoned. And works quite nice in this deck because you can bring out Tenkies because of him. 1 Black Ship of Corn, amazing card, just get rid of those monsters that are below 21 and inflict 1,000 to your opponent. Steel Storm Roach, this guy just helps, he's essentially the Crimson Blader of the Xyz deck, or in this deck, because it just tells your opponent, you can't get this level 5 or above out, which is useful against a lot of decks, not most decks, but again, he's situational, so that's why I have him in the deck. Diamond Direwolf, probably should have went out to this guy quite a few occasions, but I didn't. But he's a great card in this deck, really does synergize in this deck. And then, last but not least, Gagaga Cowboy, just to go for that quick win. I did, however, run Exciton during locals because my friend actually did pull Exciton. Now, I'm going to show you guys an extra deck, or, well, I'm not going to show you guys the other deck, or the side deck because I'm weighing on cards, but honestly, it's up to you. You can run Valors, you can run Trap Stuns, just it's anti-meta cards, essentially. So I hope you guys enjoyed this deck video. Thank you guys for 1,000 views on the Lightsworn video. Yeah, I don't know, it might be past that at that point, but honestly, that is ridiculous. Hope you guys liked this video. If you did enjoy, please let me know how you liked the video. Maybe if you had any suggestions for this deck, because this will be an ever-evolving deck, and my primary deck at that. So, I'll be seeing you guys later. Hope you guys have a good one, and bye.